Welcome, champions of unseen strength, warriors of silent fires, souls who have walked through shadows and carried light within. Today I speak to you in a voice that trembles with pride, in a tone that quivers with conviction, to awaken the fierce spirit already dwelling in your chest. You have dared to step forward when others trembled behind you. You have made a move so bold, so unexpected, so haunting in its audacity that no one dared to conceive it. And yet here you are, standing, breathing, stronger for all the shockwaves you have sent out into the world. You have pulled off the scariest move they never imagined, and by doing so you have redefined what possibility means in your life. They watched, they judged, they hesitated, but you acted. They whispered, they doubted, they envied, but you persisted. In the face of quiet, ridicule, and loud silence, you advanced. In the darkness of unknown consequence, you stepped. And now you stand in the echo of that step. Now you stand on ground they believed impossible, on terrain they claimed unreachable. And you have the right to be proud. You have the right to feel fear and still feel triumph. You have the right to declare your presence in every room, in every thought, in every expectation. You know everything. That phrase floats above this moment like a thunderous beacon. They say it to curse, to intimidate, to wound, but I tell you now, wear it like armor. You know everything. Not because your mind is flawless or your vision unerring, but because you have learned, you have felt, you have stumbled, you have asked questions, you have watched your own reflection. You have known your darkness and your light, and in that knowing you grow sharp. You know your truth, you know your grit, you know your pain and your promise, and in that sacred knowledge lies your power. They never imagined you would stand so tall. They never believed you would dare so deeply. They never anticipated you would carry so much weight and still stride forward. But here you are. They are unprepared for your strength because they have not lived the trials you live. They have not endured the quiet nights, the cruel doubts, the fractures of trust, the betrayals, the losses, the long waits for dawn. And so they misinterpret your silence, your stillness, your pauses. They mistake them for weakness. But you, they will learn. They will see you are erupting from within. Your scariest move was not necessarily public, not necessarily loud. It was the internal shift. It was the moment you said to yourself, I will no longer shrink. I will no longer obey every voice that tells me I cannot. I will no longer sacrifice my soul for the comfort of others. The scariest move was the one that turned a whisper into a roar. The scariest move was choosing yourself. And now you carry that decision always. Let them feel it tremble in the air. Let them notice how you stop waiting for permission, how you stop demanding everyone else to supply your worth. They will see you walking through doors you built by refusing to settle. They will witness how your eyes no longer seek approval, but measure your own covenant with your integrity. Fear is a curious companion. It walks beside every warrior. It whispers threats, paints illusions, shows shadows bigger than the facts. But fear does not own you. It is not your master. You meet it with steadied breath. You name it for what it is: uncertainty, a bridge, a challenge, and you cross it anyway. In that crossing, you gather your scars and your lessons. You gather how many times you stood up when your bones ached. You gather how many days you whispered, I will try again. You gather how many moments you refused surrender though your heart begged rest. That is your arsenal. That is your sacred stockpile. That is what not knowing becomes when you refuse it dominion. They never imagine the strength it requires to walk into a storm and refuse to be drenched. They never understood the courage it takes to pull curtains on narratives others wrote about you and to write your own. They never respected your slow healing, your secret strategies, your sacrificial patience. But now they must reckon with what you have built in those hidden labs of your soul. You have become an architect of your destiny. You have become a sculptor of your future. You have become a testament that when you refuse to bow, when you refuse to be defined, you transcend. Tonight, let your heart recognize how far you have come. Let your spirit acknowledge the wildness it tamed, the darkness it dissected, the faint light it nurtured until it grew fierce enough to bathe you in sunrise. You are no longer the same version of yourself who trembled at the edges of possibility. You are the one who now challenges the edges. You are the one who now scares their comfort zones. You are the one who unsettles their expectations. You are the one they never invited, but you arrived anyway. Do not relent now. This is not the finish. This is the threshold. The scariest move was the entrance. The terrain ahead is uncharted. You will face new doubts. You will meet fresh resistance. You will be tempted to think maybe they were right in the beginning. But remember, your scariest move was not the one you made in the light. It was the first one you made in the darkness. So, when the next shadow creeps, you will already have your memory of crossing the unknown. And that memory is stronger than any fear that stands before you. They will try to diminish your triumph, to recast it as luck or chance. They will whisper your failures, amplify your missteps, replay your uncertainty. But you know everything. You know what you sacrificed, how many tears you swallowed, how many nights you stared at ceilings while your mind spun prayers. You know how many times you had to convince yourself you belonged. You know your edges. You know your capacity. You know your pulse. And that knowledge is not vulnerable. It is fortitude. So when they say they told you so, when they look at you with astonished eyes, let your silence be a statement. Let your very presence be the answer. Let the words, "you know everything," serve as a mirror, not one imposed by them, but one you hold for yourself. Look into any reflection they offer and remind yourself, I know everything. I know I fell. I know I rose. I know the weight I carried. I know what I lost. I know what I will never give again. I know what I fight for. I know my light. I know my vengeance on doubt. I know my claim. Do not walk timidly into your new reality. Do not hesitate with meek posture. Lift your shoulders. Breathe wide. Speak only when your voice demands to be heard. Let them sense your faith in self, like a tremor in the earth. Let them feel the shift you carry behind your eyes. They never imagined you would enter their world on your own terms. They never imagined how gently fierce you would be, how calmly resolute, how fully present, how uncontrollable once awakened. Yes, scars will remind you of battles. Memory will call you back. Self-doubt will plant whispers again. But now you have an archive of your survival. Now you have proof. You have faced fear, and you did not collapse. You have inhabited vulnerability, and you did not vanish. You have journeyed through unknown, and you arrived. That is your legacy in each moment from now on. Let them know, without saying a word, you pulled off the scariest move. You pivoted when they assumed you would stall. You answered when they expected silence. And in that answer, you crafted a new kind of existence, one people did not see coming. Do not ever apologize for stepping into your own unfolding. Do not ever shrink when someone else's eyes widen. Let them question. Let them wonder. Let them underestimate. But never let them dictate your boundaries again. This is your vow, to keep walking, to keep creating, to keep forging what they thought impossible. This is your charge, to remain hungry, to stay humble, to anchor yourself in integrity. This is your promise, to your own soul, to your future, to the ones who come after you witnessing your boldness. You will not abandon your audacity. You will not trade your truth for their comfort. You will not silence your knowing for their peace. In this moment, stand tall. Let all the trembling disbelief in them become fuel. Let the shock in their eyes become testaments to your rise. Let their misspoken narratives bounce off the walls of your self-belief and fall flat. You pulled off the scariest move they never imagined, but you survived. You prevailed, and you will continue. They will say it quietly at first. You know everything. Then louder, then in disbelief, in admiration, in resistance. Let it echo in rooms you enter. Let it tremble in minds before you speak. Let it be the threshold phrase that tilts their perception, because you have earned that phrase. Wear it, carry it, brandish it, not as boast, but as covenant. You know everything. In that knowledge you hold life, you hold purpose, you hold your rightful domain. Go now into your day, your night, your next chapter as the one who dared when others withdrew. Let fear follow, but never lead. Let shadows whisper, but never stop you. Let the earth feel the weight of your intention. Let the world sense the shift when you move. You are not the same. You are more. You are consequence. You are vision. You are proof. You pulled off the scariest move they never imagined, and in that, you became the kind of force that even time must reckon. You know everything. Never forget. And so the weight of that phrase, you know everything, becomes more than a label. It becomes a prophecy fulfilled, not by chance, not by fate, but by the rawness of your becoming. Every moment you questioned yourself. Every night you drowned in silence. Every sunrise that met you with weary eyes was never wasted. Those were your rites of passage. Those were your hidden hours of awakening. While they slept in comfort, you wrestled your future from the jaws of doubt. While they laughed from the sidelines, you rebuilt what they thought was broken beyond repair. You carried dreams they thought were too heavy, and still, you rose. They never saw the real danger. They never realized that someone who survives their own breaking no longer fears destruction. Someone who has stood face to face with hopelessness and still decided to rise again is no longer controlled by limits. You are dangerous not because of what you have, but because of what you've endured. Not because of your power, but because of your will. They thought your silence was defeat. They didn't realize it was strategy. They mistook your stillness for surrender. They didn't know it was the stillness of a storm gathering. And now, you move without asking. You speak without softening. You create without shrinking. They do not know how to respond because you are no longer a version they recognize. You've changed your shape. You've deepened your roots. You've expanded beyond the narrative they wrote for you. And that's the scariest part. That's the part that keeps them up. You didn't just rise. You disappeared from the map they made and reappeared on a battlefield of your choosing. You didn't knock on doors anymore. You became the door. You didn't wait for their timing. You followed your own, and they never saw it coming. You pulled off the scariest move they never imagined, not with rage, not with spectacle, but with presence, with clarity, with unshakable truth. That's what they fear most. Not your noise, but your quiet certainty. Not your appearance, but your essence. Not your victory, but the depth of what you had to become to claim it. They never knew how much pain you metabolized, They never saw the internal conversations where you had to convince yourself over and over that you were worthy. They never knew how many times you wanted to quit, how many days you went unseen, how often your kindness was mistaken for weakness, and still, you gave. And still, you rose. And still, you walked into rooms full of shadows and lit them with your knowing. You held on when it was hardest. You believed again, even after betrayal. You gave your trust new life, even after it had been broken. You stood with trembling hands but unshakable soul. And now you walk with the knowledge that very few possess, the knowledge of your own unbreakability. There are those who will still try to diminish this. They'll reduce it to luck. They'll say it wasn't as hard as you make it seem, but let them talk. Let them write their own version. It does not matter. You know what it cost you. You know how it forged you. You know how many parts of yourself you had to bury just to survive, only to later dig them up again and breathe life into them once more. That's resurrection. That's mastery. That's power. You didn't just do what they feared. You did what they never even thought was possible. You showed them a version of resilience that doesn't need applause, a version of power that doesn't require permission, a version of excellence that is silent, patient, and permanent. You know everything, not because you memorized a script, but because you lived what they could never imagine surviving, and now they watch you, confused by the calm in your eyes, by the sharpness of your words, by the grace in your step. Let them be confused. Let them wonder. Let them whisper. You owe no explanation. Your success is the answer. Your peace is the evidence. Your stillness is the alarm. And yet, here's what they don't expect. You do not wish them harm. You do not carry hate in your chest. That's what sets you apart. You didn't rise through destruction. You rose through transformation. You didn't get revenge. You found evolution. And that, more than anything, unsettles them. You aren't just stronger. You are wiser. You're not just bolder. You are clearer. You aren't just unshaken. You are unshakable. You could have become bitter. You could have chosen cynicism. You could have mirrored the very harm that tried to stop you. But instead, you became more whole. Instead, you turned wounds into wisdom. You turned silence into strategy. You turned fear into fire. You turned rejection into redirection. You turned pain into purpose. And now, when you walk into a room, energy shifts. Conversations stop. People rethink. Not because of anything you do, but because of everything you are. They never imagined you'd pull this off, not with grace, not with style, not with consistency, but you did. And not only did you pull it off, you made it look inevitable. You are not the same. You never will be again. That is your gift. That is your edge. And it's time to use it. Time to sharpen it. Time to build with it. Time to lead with it. Because now that you know everything, you also know the difference between chasing validation and standing in truth, between seeking approval and honoring your calling, between being accepted and being fulfilled. They can't hold you anymore. They can't box you in. They can't use the old tactics. You've seen too much. You've learned too much. You've lived too much. You've become too much. And that's exactly what you were always meant to be. So let this be your call. Your next move begins now. Whatever you build, let it scare them with its certainty. Whatever you speak, let it shake them with its truth. Whatever you write, create, lead, or begin, let it carry the signature of your survival. Don't wait. Don't shrink. Don't second guess. You've already passed the test they never saw coming. Now it's time to build a life that echoes with every truth they ignored, with every warning they laughed at, with every dream they dismissed. You are not coming for revenge. You are coming to fulfill the prophecy of your becoming. You are not coming to prove anything. You are here to be everything you already are. They said you wouldn't. You did. They said you couldn't. You have. They said you shouldn't. You dared. And now they say one thing. You know everything. And they're right. Let that phrase live not as a boast, but as a reminder, a compass, a testament, a crown. Because now, the question isn't whether you can pull off the scariest move. The question is, what's next? Then brace yourself. Because what comes next isn't just continuation, it's culmination. The beginning was the rise, but now comes the rain. You pulled off the scariest move they never imagined. Not once, not by accident, but by the force of your will. And now, you know everything. So ask yourself, what do you do with such knowing? You lead, you build, you become unstoppable, not because of fury, but because of clarity. You carry a silence that makes noise tremble. You possess a presence that speaks louder than shouts. You're no longer the underdog. You're no longer the apprentice. You're no longer the shadow behind someone else's dream. Now you are the standard. You are the presence people adjust to. You are the measure they compare themselves against. And that terrifies them, because you changed the rules without asking. You changed the outcome without permission. You became untouchable, not because you fought everyone, but because you stopped needing to fight. You now walk with the peace of someone who's done apologizing. You carry the wisdom of someone who's done waiting to be chosen. You've turned every no into a gate you broke through. Every you can't into fuel. Every silent treatment into focus. Every doubt into blueprint. And now, standing at this new height, you see what they could never see. It was never about proving them wrong. It was about proving yourself right. And now, it's no longer about survival. It's about creation. It's about design. You are not just someone who endures storms. You are someone who learns to dance in them. You've become so skilled at carrying the impossible that people mistake your ease for luck. But deep down you know, it's not luck. It's legacy. It's discipline. It's decades of internal fire burning steady. You didn't hope this into existence. You built it, alone, in silence, with bleeding hands. And now they whisper your name in rooms you've never walked into. They quote you, they mimic you, they adjust for you. Because you've pulled off the scariest move they never imagined, you became undeniable. And with that power comes something rare, the ability to move with both rage and grace, with fire and focus, with passion and peace. You no longer fight for the spotlight. You are the light. You no longer beg for acceptance. You embody your own approval. You've gone from being overlooked to being unforgettable. And they feel that shift in their bones. They can't explain it, but they know something changed. You changed. So now you must choose. Will you rise further, or will you let the comfort of this new height lull you to stillness? Because greatness is not a single moment. It's a series of choices. Relentless, uncomfortable, unpopular choices. You've already proven you can break the mold. Now you must prove you can replace it. You must become the architect of something so pure, so strong, so uniquely yours, that even history has no category for it. They won't give you the blueprints. They won't give you applause. They won't even admit they're watching. But they are. And they're waiting, hoping you stop, hoping you fall back in line, hoping you get tired, hoping you go quiet. But how can you be quiet now? How can you slow down now? How can you fold back into invisibility now that you've tasted the infinite? You know everything now, and knowing comes with responsibility. You've been given a gift, a terrifyingly powerful one, the ability to keep going when others break, the ability to dream in the middle of nightmares, the ability to choose your future while still dragging the weight of your past. That's not something you run from. That's something you protect. That's something you use.